Okay, welcome. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody. Okay, what we have here is comedian David Letterman brands Trump a dictator, says he is humanity's worst accomplishment. So, what I want to do is I want to comment on this November 25th, 2025, from the Barbara Gaines Show podcast, where David Letterman referred to the President Trump as our dictator while defending late night host Seth Meyers against Trump's calls for his dismissal from NBC. And so I'm going to do a little bit of commentary on it. Letterman described Trump's administration as a wonder of idiocy and stated it's like 18 times worse behavior one has witnessed ever anywhere, extending his prior characterization of Trump as humanity's worst accomplishment. The rhetoric, while hyperbolic, aligns with Letterman's long-standing criticism of Trump, but it has drawn accusations of exaggeration from various commentators: USAtoday.com, Breitbart.com, Variety.com, and NorthB.com. And I think it's very necessary that we comment on this subject, because this comedian, he's using the word dictator and he's calling it one of humanity's worst accomplishments. So I wanted to share with you, I did a little bit of research. I was writing down some of the worst accomplishments that I've seen in humanity. And I just wanted to do a little research on about 10. Maybe we'll go through 10 of them. I'll just mention him. David Letterman brands Trump a dictator, says he is humanity's worst accomplishment. First, we'll take on the second. He is humanity's worst accomplishment. So I wanted to evaluate some of the things that have happened in history. And number one, the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 1945. It resulted in over 200,000 immediate deaths and long-term radiation effect, marking the first use of nuclear weapons in warfare and ushering nuclear age. I wonder if David Letterman has the mental capacity. David Letterman has the mental capacity to compare that. He's calling our president the worst accomplishment. But in humanity, we were able to accomplish the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That was pretty bad. Number two, the Holocaust. Systemic genocide from 1941 and 1945, or maybe earlier, but the Holocaust of the Jews. The systemic genocide orchestrated by Nazi Germany, claiming approximately 6 million Jewish lives, alongside millions of others, embodying industrialized mass murder. And if we remember 1941, 1945, I think the Germans were stopped in Stalingrad in 1942. And the Einsatzgruppen, they were going around all over the Soviet Union killing people in random killing spree. And I think some estimates are that the Russians lost more than the Jewish people. Number three, the Rwandan genocide. Let me see. Put this up. Did you read that? Okay, my alarm went off. I'm back. Number three, the Mongol conquests, 13th century. Under Genghis Khan, invasions depopulated vast regions, killing an estimated 40 million people, about 10% of the global population at the time. Wow. In the 13th century. Comment section. X Zoom X. I'd say COVID-19 was a far worse accomplishment. Ay, ay, ay. I think he's correct. Okay, number 4 for David Letterman. David Letterman had the top 10, huh? So here's the 5. Transatlantic slave trade. 16th and 19th century, enslaved and transported over 12 million Africans, leading to millions of deaths en route and perpetuating centuries of systematic oppression. The transatlantic slave trade from the 16th to the 19th century. The Cambodian genocide, 1975 to 1979. A lot of people don't remember that. You have to be at least minimum, maybe 55 years old, 50 years old to remember the Cambodian boat people here in the United States when they came over to the United States. The young people don't remember that, but the Cambodian genocide, the Khmer Rouge under Pol Pot executed or starved 1.5 million to 2 million Cambodians, targeting intellectuals and ethnic minorities in pursuit of agrarian utopia. Now, you think David Letterman thinks that Donald Trump is worse than the Cambodian genocide? He's like Barack Obama in reverse. Remember when Barack Obama was president? He got the Nobel Peace Prize on the come. We haven't seen this kind of genocide with Donald Trump, but David Letterman is already saying he's worse. The worst accomplishment, humanity's worst accomplishment. Number 7, the Armenian genocide from 1915 to 1923. The Ottoman Empire's systemic extermination of 1.5 million Armenians through massacres, deportations, and death marches. Number 8. Number 8 has to be one of the most important ones. Number 8. I don't know if anybody remembers the Great Leap Forward. And it came in a couple of phases, but this one talks about the Great Leap Forward from 1958 to 1962. Mao Zedong's policy in China caused a famine that killed 15 to 55 million, driven by forced civil collectivization and industrial overreach. Wow, I would put that one there. Damien Jose said hi. Hello, Damien. Thank you for saying hello. Liz Scooter, 1700, said hi. Hello. Okay, what do we got? Dedicated to David Letterman. Number 9, the partition of India, 1947. British colonial division led to communal violence, displacing 15 million and killing 1.1 to 2 million in riots and migrations. This was naturally during the time of Mahatma Gandhi. Number 10 is a big one. The Chernobyl nuclear disaster. David Letterman thinks Donald Trump is worse than the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. Number 11, the Rwandan Civil War and the Congo conflicts, 1990s to present. Over 5 million deaths from violence, disease, and starvation in the Democratic Republic of Congo, exacerbated by resource exploitation. What do you think about that? David Letterman claims that Donald Trump is humanity's worst accomplishment. Another one, number 12. Number 12 is a big one for all. It's Christmas season. And so we're going to get a little religious here for everybody. And maybe some people will agree with this or not. But what I came up with, number 12, the Inquisition from the 12th to the 19th century. Catholic Church's campaign tortured and executed tens of thousands for heresy, stifling scientific and intellectual progress. Stifling. Number 13. 12 was a big one, the Inquisition, because I got a little religious. And I have a hard time understanding the Inquisition. I gotta plead ignorance on it. I always thought that the 13th, the 15th century was pretty good with Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand leading the expulsion of the Moors from Spain. So we got to do a little bit more deep. But anyways, David Letterman claims Donald Trump is worse than the Inquisition. Wow. Number 14, the Bosnian genocide. Oh, wait, let me back up. Number 13, we already talked about the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution at number 8. But on number 13, a little bit closer to our generation, all the Gen Xers will probably remember this. The Cultural Revolution in China from 1966 to 1976. Mao's purge mobilized youth to persecute perceived enemies, resulting in 1 to 2 million deaths and widespread societal trauma. Number 14, the Bosnian genocide. Wow, the Bosnian genocide. This is getting closer to our time. The Bosnian genocide, 1992 to 1995. That would be the Bill Clinton years. Ethnic cleansing during the Yugoslav wars, including the Srebrenica massacre of 8,000 Bosnian men and boys. Number 15, we all remember this one. This one's a big one. Now, this one I had a hard time agreeing with it, but if you lived through it, you would probably agree. But the Atlantic Hurricane Katrina response failures of 2005, inadequate federal preparation and aid led to 1,800 deaths and $125 billion in damages, exposing systemic inequalities. Now, no matter what you cite on the Atlantic Hurricane Katrina response, David Letterman here, in all his knowledge, is claiming that Donald Trump is worse than the Katrina response. His words, not ours. Next one. The opioid epidemic in the United States, 1990s to present. Pharmaceutical-driven crisis has claimed over 500,000 lives, fueled by aggressive marketing and regulatory lapses. Number 17, the Bhopal chemical disaster. Union Carbide leak exposed 500,000 to toxic gas, killing 16,000 immediate and causing chronic health issues for generations. Number 18, the Syrian war to 2011 to present time. Conflict has displaced, I didn't know this one. This one we don't talk too much about, the Syrian civil war. I thought that was pretty new, but it says here that the conflict has displaced 13 million people and killed over 500,000, involving chemical weapons and international proxy involvement. Number 19, boy, this was one of John Belushi's favorite. The Irish potato famine. British policies exacerbated blight-induced starvation, leading to 1 million deaths and mass emigration. Number 20, the development and proliferation of chemical weapons, World War I to present, from mustard gas in the trenches to the sarin attacks. These agents have caused indiscriminate suffering in conflicts worldwide. So there you have it. Just a real quick 20 points. And history is replete with humanity's worst accomplishments. But the genius, the white quitter, the great white quitter, David Letterman, quitting on America, quitting on all Americans, calling Donald Trump humanity's worst accomplishment. Now, one of the concluding observations that we have to put is, aside from just mentioning that David Letterman is wrong, and we cite 20 examples in history, from the atomic bombing all the way to the Mao Zedong days, how David Letterman is wrong and stupid. He's also incorrect in the use of the word dictator. That's what I wanted to talk about today. The use of the word dictator. This is real important. And I used the comparison when doing an analysis of this, the broader implication that David Letterman using the word dictator really dumbs down the population. It makes everybody in America a little bit stupider. Anybody who listens to David Letterman. Because we all know that some of the 20 worst cases that we have cited in humanity, from the Mongol conquest, the Rwandan genocide, the Cambodian genocide, the Armenian genocides, or the British conquest of India, a lot of times those were done by the Bosnian genocide, the Syrian civil war, the Rwanda civil war, the Cultural Revolution in China, could be attributed to dictators. And I mentioned that with David Letterman using the word dictator, he dumbs down the people he's trying to help. How so? Well, do you remember a couple of, I think it was a year ago, there was a speaker in the English Parliament, in Canadian Parliament, and he turned out to be a Nazi. So this is the research, and I'm going to read it directly. It says, the interplay between Letterman's comments and the Canadian incident exemplifies how rhetorical excess on both sides of the political spectrum can erode trust in institutions. True dictatorships characterized by systemic suppression of dissent, as seen in the regimes under figures like Bashar al-Assad and Fidel Castro, and from democratic leaders, result in many deaths. And it goes contrary to the American system of things of checks and balances. But there is an irony that this episode of the case where it was in 2023 in the Canadian House of Commons, September 22nd, 2023, during the Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky's address, Speaker Anthony Rota invited and praised 98-year-old Yaroslav Hunka as a Ukraine-Canadian war veteran from the Second World War, who fought for the Ukraine independence against the Russians. Unbeknownst to Rota and the Assembly at the time, Hunka had served in the 14th Waffen Grenadier Division of the SS 1st Galatian, a Nazi-aligned unit implicated in atrocities against Polish and Jewish civilians during World War II, though not formally convicted of war crimes by post-war tribunals. The chamber, including members from all major parties, accorded Hunka a standing ovation, an action that sparked international outrage upon revelation of his background. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, whose Liberal government leads the progressive-leaning coalition, issued a formal apology, describing the incident as a mistake that deeply embarrassed Parliament and Canada. Rota accepted full responsibility, resigned as Speaker on September 26, 2023. And the House unanimously adopted a motion condemning Nazism in all forms, withdrawing recognition of Hunka. This episode underscores a critical irony. While progressive voices, including those in Canada's Parliament, routinely decry fascism, this is the point, they routinely decry fascism, the unintended elevation of a former SS member highlighted vetting failures and the complexities of historical narratives involving Ukraine independence struggles against Soviet forces. Jewish advocacy groups such as Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center condemned the oversight as a stain on Canada's legislature, amplifying concerns about historical amnesia. It serves as a cautionary example of how unchecked symbolism can inadvertently legitimize extremism, reinforcing your point about the need for precision in anti-authoritarian rhetoric. So there you have it. Just a little research I did on this David Letterman character, on his use of the word dictator. He brings more harm to everybody that he communicates this with. And I used the example of the Canadian Parliament in 2023, where the liberals and the progressives, uh, they routinely called conservatives as Nazis and fascists. And so what happens is when a true Nazi or a true fascist comes inside their parliament, they couldn't tell, or what they call here a historical amnesia. Here, when confronted with a true fascist, a true Nazi, they didn't know. And that's what we have with David Letterman. He's calling Donald Trump a true not dictator. What his followers, his fans, his sycophants, when they wouldn't know a real dictator until it was chopping off their head. So it was real good. In conclusion, this episode underscores a critical irony. While progressive voices, including those in Canada's parliament, routinely decry fascism, the unintended elevation of a former SS member highlighted vetting failures and complexities of historical narratives involving Ukraine independence struggles against Soviet forces. The broader implication and recommendations. The interplay between Letterman's comments and the Canadian incident exemplifies how rhetorical excess on both sides of the political spectrum can erode trust in institutions. True dictators, characterized by systemic suppression of dissent, as seen in the regimes under Kim Jong un, Bashar al Assad, differ markedly from democratic leaders, however flawed, who operate within checks and balances. And there's a very good point right there. True democratic leaders operate within checks and balances. And I would venture to say that this man, David Letterman, is highly, highly ignorant or dangerous using the word dictator. Have you ever lived under a dictatorship where you can routinely sue that dictator? Can you imagine if you lived under Franco in Spain in the 1930s, Francisco Franco? Or if you lived in Fidel Castro in the 60s, 70s, or 80s? Or if you lived under Mao Zedong during the Cultural Revolution or Pol Pot during the fall of Phnom Penh? And can you imagine somebody in that era putting a lawsuit on one of these dictators? But that's what happens to our president every day. And this comedian, alleged comedian, has the audacity to call our leader, our elected, truly democratically elected president, a dictator. Maybe he is one of humanity's worst accomplishments.